Hey Mueller junkies, today's episode is brought to you in part by Beachbody On Demand, an easy-to-use streaming service that gives you instant access to a wide variety of super effective workouts you can do from the comfort of your living room 24/7.
So to be clear, Mr. Trump has no financial relationships with any Russian oligarchs.
That's what he said. That's what I said. That's obviously what our position is.
I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians.
What do I have to get involved with Putin for? I have nothing to do with Putin. I've never spoken to him. I don't know anything about him other than he will respect me. Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
So, it is political. You're a communist.
No, Mr. Green. Communism is just a red herring. Like all members of the oldest profession, I'm a capitalist.
Hello and welcome to Mueller, She Wrote. I am your anonymous host, AG. I work for Trump's executive branch, so I have to use a pseudonym to keep from violating the Hatch Act. And no, I am not the author of the New York Times op-ed. With me, as always, is Jaleesa Johnson.
Hi.
And Jordan Coburn.
Hello.
So this is episode 45, technically, but I think we might skip it and call it 46.
Yeah, it's not
13.
Exactly, not a legitimate episode.
I kept 13. I'm all for 13. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like, you know how some hotels don't have a 13th floor?
Oh, yeah.
And Mitch Hedberg told a joke. He's like, if you jump out of the window on the 14th floor, you'll die earlier.
Mm-hmm. We're now politically superstitious about 45. I'm with you.
Yeah, so no 45. But we do have an awesome show for you this week. Jaleesa is going to give us an update on Mifsud, and Jordan is going to cover the leaks from the forthcoming book called Fear by Bob Woodward. I'm going to cover the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings, and I'll tell you how they're tied into the Mueller investigation later. And we also have very special appearances. First, from the author of the new book, Proof of Collusion, Seth Abramson, is going to join us. And we have the writer and director of the new film out on Hulu and iTunes called Active Measures, all about the Trump-Russia collusion. His name is Jack Bryan. And he just appeared on Real Time with Bill Maher on Friday, so I'm really excited to have him. I also, before we got started, wanted to address an email I got about our announcement last week that we'll be removing the $1 and $2 levels from our Patreon starting on October 1st. She was very concerned about those who might not have a lot of discretionary income lying around, and we were very concerned about undervaluing ourselves. So we're going to meet in the middle and make a $3 level so we can meet those needs. And people who, just don't have a ton of money lying around can still become patrons. You can sign up right now still at the $1 and $2 levels all month until October 1st. So if you're not a patron yet, check it out. You'll get access to our bonus episodes, our bonus interviews, our newsletter, my show notes, membership to the MSW Book Club, and all kinds of swag. So go ahead to MuellerSheWrote.com for more information. And we have a lot of news to get to this week, so let's just kick it off with just the facts. All right, so first of all, Kyle Griffin tweeted on Sunday that Chris Christie's administration reportedly funneled $500 million from New Jersey workers' pension cash to American media and David Pecker. So you guys remember when last week when we were talking about, why would Pecker and Howard be willing to tank their paper for Trump? Well, maybe they were okay because they had that huge injection of $500 million in cash from the point man on the Trump transition team, Chris Christie. It's a real problem, though, because if the paper does go under, that $500 million that's supposed to go to workers' pensions is gone. Mainstream media hasn't picked up this story yet, but some New Jersey newspapers have been reporting it back to August 30th, so put some beans on it. We'll watch it.
It's so tricky. So it's just waiting there like a safety net for them?
It might already be spent. I don't know, but $500 million went from New Jersey pension funds to Pecker.
Yeah. It's the opposite of Robin Hood.
Yeah. Robbing the poor to feed the rich.
Yeah.
And to cover up abortions.
Totally.
We had a quiet Labor Day Monday, which was nice, so we relaxed. But on Tuesday, the New York Times reported that Mueller will accept written answers on collusion from Trump in lieu of an interview. According to two sources familiar with the matter, Mueller will accept written answers about whether his campaign conspired with Russia to interfere in the 2016 election. The letter also said that Mueller's team understands that issues of executive privilege could complicate the pursuit of an interview about obstruction, and they didn't ask for written answers on those matters either. But it's important to note that Mueller has not given up on an interview for obstruction, but many Trump allies have concluded now that if an interview does happen, the scope will be way more limited than Trump's legal team initially thought. Remember when we did those 50 questions the New York Times released? We did an emergency sode.
Yeah.
And they were, turned out they were released by Trump's team, probably Seculo. Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of people think now that because he's willing to take written answers and because he's walking, treading lightly on obstruction, that it won't be a 50-question interview. It'll be much smaller. But that's their speculation, and they're welcome to believe that if they want.
Interesting.
Also, Tuesday morning, the Kavanaugh hearings began. Kavanaugh is Trump's nominee for the next Supreme Court justice, and I'm going to talk about that later in the show. But
he brought children.
Yeah, he brought his children. It reminded me of the scene in Liar Liar where, she brings her children to the divorce case for sympathy, and he goes, "It's working. I feel sorry for them already." Yeah. Then the Washington Post did a piece on Trump because he suggested protesting should be illegal. In an Oval Office interview with the Daily Caller, that's a super conservative group of a-holes, just hours after Kavanaugh was greeted with pretty loud protests on the Senate in the Senate hearing, Trump said, quote, "I don't know why they don't take care of a situation like that. I think it's embarrassing for the country to allow protesters." You don't even know what side the protesters are on. Oh my God. Okay, so there's like 90 things wrong with this statement. First of all, protesting is one of our constitutional rights. It's one of our guarantees to peacefully protest. So F you on that. Second, to say it's embarrassing for the country to allow protesters, that coming from the most embarrassing thing that's happened to our country since the 70s. Then he says, we don't know what side the protesters are on. They're protesters. That puts them on one very specific side. I know he doesn't read, but the huge signs that say vote no and be a hero, and the shouting of words like vote no and be a hero should have been a clue. Mm-hmm. There was not one person protesting the Dems to vote yes on Kavanaugh. It's a protest. It means you're anti-something. That's puts you on a side. Both sides. I don't know. Maybe he's just confused about sides.
Putin hates protests, so Trump's just being a good little Putin boy.
Yeah. Remember, he blamed Hillary for all the protests against him in 2011. Mm-hmm. We learned that from the Russian roulette book, and that's why Putin hates Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Sadly enough, though, I do think that protests are getting a little bit neutralized, at least in terms of how the public sees them, because they just see it and it's like, here we go. Either people are going to actually look and try to listen to what they're saying, or they're going to see it and just be like, oh, this gets us nowhere, Obviously, I don't think they'd think that protesting should be illegal, but I do think that it gets muddied at least. And it's like people are just sick of the conflict, I guess, but that's lazy. You need to actually listen.
Yeah, we can't afford to be sick of it. We've been sick of it forever. Like, I think that's the whole point of Obama's speech the other day, right? He was just like, I get it. Politics is frustrating and we're jaded, but this is the time where it's now or never. You know, this is different. And people need to get over their what do you call it? Apathy?
Fatigue.
Yeah.
Exactly, fatigue. Yeah, I don't know if this is a legitimate concern, but when I was listening to NPR coverage of it, protests would happen. They'd break out. They'd be disruptive. And all the reporters on NPR would say, protesters interrupt. They wouldn't say, protester says, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I question why. I understand you can't report on everything protesters are saying, but the fact that they just glossed over it completely and did neutralize it, I think is problematic.
They did, and so did the senators, and so did some of the Dem senators. They would just be like, okay, we have to wait till they leave. And it's like, and one guy, I think he was like, who are these people, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, those are voters. You know, those are citizens that are concerned about the fact that a proven liar and anti-Roe guy is going to be appointed to the court. I'm going to go into more detail when we talk about Kavanaugh later. But protests should be illegal and they're embarrassing. Oh my God, eat shit. Then the news dropped about the Bob Woodward book, Fear, and Jordan's going to cover that for us later in the show. Really good, juicy pieces leaking out before we get to. God, that's gross. I didn't mean for it to be. It was more like fruit.
I thought about meat, so I got kind of hungry, but that's just me.
I'm vegetarian.
I'm so sorry.
Of vegetables. Wednesday, we learned another Roger Stonehenge guy named Jerome Corsi was subpoenaed by the Mueller team. Corsi is a Republican conspiracy theorist with Stone connections. Apparently, he was in earshot when Stone talked about his ties to WikiLeaks, and he was supposed to testify before the grand jury Friday, but he didn't show up. And he's also said that he could beat up Mueller. I don't know. He's just a weird dude. And it kind of looks like Brody. They kind of look like they could be brothers. But Randy Credico did show up and testified on Friday. So Mueller keeps closing in on Stone. I just hope he doesn't need Andrew Miller's testimony because he could be tied up in his appeal for a while. If you remember, he's the guy who held himself in contempt for not responding to a Mueller subpoena so that he could appeal the constitutionality of the investigation to the D.C. appellate court. Another reason Trump shouldn't be allowed to seat a justice, by the way, who refuses to recuse.
Yeah.
Let's see. The op-ed came out. on Wednesday. I didn't write it. A Trump administration official wrote an opinion editorial for the New York, that's what op-ed means, opinion editorial, for the New York Times called, quote, "I am part of the resistance inside the Trump administration," unquote. This person is a he, at least I think so, because the New York Times tweeted he and then deleted the tweet and walked it back. They wouldn't have said he if it were a woman. But everyone weighed in on who it could have been, and of course Trump went nuts. He was already off his rocker about the Woodward book leak, but after the op-ed, he started tweeting that the New York Times needed to hand over the author to the government immediately. That's frightening as fuck. Yeah. All of his staffers, including his wife, were forced to give him written statements saying that it wasn't them. And he tweeted at Jeff, which is Jeff Sessions, our Attorney General. Hey, Jeff.
Is he at Jeff?
Wow, what a good Twitter handle, at Jeff. He wants to spend our tax dollars investigating, not Jeff, but Trump wanted Jeff to spend our tax money to investigate who wrote the memo. And then he started considering giving everyone lie detector tests because Rand Paul told him it would be a good idea. But one thing I feel got lost in the bedlam was the absolutely terrifying message in the op-ed. It said they were considering the 25th Amendment early on. That's the amendment that the president is unfit to serve, but decided to put their heads down and keep America safe from the president. We'll just keep going so we can get our tax cuts and we can get our shit. And that's absolute bullshit. And they can go ahead and take credit for all the shit that's happened and will happen because they didn't remove Trump like they were supposed to per the Constitution. I mean, if you think about all that's happened, family separations, right? One, possibly two conservative Supreme Court nominations, a flubbed foreign policy, the whole North Korea debacle. There's too many things to even think about, but I don't like this op-ed person or anyone else who has been aiding and abetting Trump in the White House. I feel like that's why we saw statements against Woodward's book from Kelly and Mattis, so that they could stay and keep the daycare open. They didn't want to, get fired because they're the only ones that are, saving America from this insane president. That we have ways to remove him. You don't have to, lie and stay there and try to thwart his efforts. I wonder if they used the phrase, "Have we Trump-proofed the White House today?" Because that's what I would do. But Maddow brought up a very good point. If you were high up in the Trump White House and you thought he was unfit and insane or whatever, who would you tell? The old lions in the Senate are dead. Ted Kennedy, John McCain. The House is ridiculous because Nunes and Jim Jordan are still there. There's nobody to tell. So you tell the New York Times. That's kind of what he was saying.
Yeah, I also think that is a testament to maybe how fearful they are that the things that are already in place in our Constitution to remedy this situation wouldn't work because he's that crazy.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
It could be a test to see what people think of the 25th Amendment. Also, could the author just be trying to put himself on the right side of history? Like he knows Trump is going to go down and that he's a completely insane criminal. So the guy wrote this to be like, see, I didn't support him later on so he could maybe keep his, a political future. Kind of like people who believe in God just in case, those people.
Yeah.
But lots of folks thought it was Pence because the person used the word Lodestar.
Before you die, there is something you should know about us, Lone Star.
What?
I am your father's brother's nephew's cousin's former roommate.
So here to chat with us today about how this op-ed was most definitely not written by Pence is a professor and CNN contributor, the author of the new book, Proof of Collusion. It's Seth Abramson. Seth, welcome to Mueller, She Wrote.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about this op-ed. I know that you tweeted out that it's not Pence, and I was just wondering what your thoughts were on that.
Sure. Well, I've been studying the Trump-Russia case for a very long time. As people probably know, it's been about 18 months or so. And in that time, I've read hundreds and hundreds of articles on the investigation. And the surprising thing, and people ask me about this a lot, is, where is Pence in all this? And what I tell them is that the surprising thing is that Pence rarely shows up where significant Trump-Russia events are occurring. And that's true even during the transition. There are places you would expect him to be as the head of the transition that he is not present at. That's clearly by design. He wants to be as clean as possible in terms of any suspicion of criminal liability when Donald Trump is impeached, should that happen, which I expect that it will. And so right now, he's the luckiest politician in America. His political career is over. Now he's in a position to potentially be president if Trump is impeached. And I think that there is no way that he would risk any of that by writing a letter like this and running afoul of Donald Trump. He has absolutely nothing to gain by it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, by the great grace of God Almighty, he is to ascend to the throne of the United States. And so, he's definitely kept out of it surprisingly well. And so when people ask, like, what's going on with Pence? What's going on with Pence? I mean, I think that he knew about Flynn and that Flynn didn't get fired for lying to Pence or misleading Pence, but that's kind of the narrative that they put together.
I think that that's true, but what's interesting is that on December 27th and December 28th, when Mike Flynn is having of 2016, when Mike Flynn is having these conversations with Sergei Kislyak, he's in touch with a team of people who are at Mar-a-Lago, and his contact person is Katie McFarland, his deputy, and Katie McFarland is getting advice from senior transition officials, according to the indictments that we have seen, saying to Katie McFarland, here's what you need to tell Mike Flynn about negotiating sanctions and the UN resolution on Israeli settlements with Sergei Kislyak. And during that period of time, Mike Pence is in Indiana. And also I will note Jared Kushner is far away at that point also. So I think that at the time that everything's going down in December 2016, he's not present. I do agree with you that thereafter he was informed about what happened, and therefore his statements on, I think it was CBS's Face the Nation in January, were probably not accurate, and he knew at the time they weren't accurate. But that's still him doing the minimal amount to stay in Trump's good graces.
Yeah, sort of by design, kept insulated from all of this.
I think that's true. One of the things that I do want to say, though, and this is not something all of your listeners will necessarily agree with, but I'm a little bit, I don't want to say ambivalent, but I have a lot of concerns about the anonymous op-ed that was published in the New York Times. There's a part of me that wants to say that if you work in the administration and you think the president is a danger to the country, the Constitution mandates that if you are serving the country, if you're fulfilling your civic duty, that you push for the 25th Amendment to be instituted and for that letter to be signed by the cabinet temporarily or perhaps even permanently removing the president from power. If you're not going to do that, I tend to think that you should quit your job and then write an op-ed and talk to the media, tell everyone you can everything that you know. But this half measure where you still get the judges you want and you still get to work for a Trump administration and don't have to reveal your identity and just claim that you're doing things to protect the country, I'm not sure that that's courage. That feels a little bit to me like cowardice.
Yeah, no, it actually makes me pretty angry, too, because if you think about all the things that have happened as a result of this administration, I think that some of the culpability then belongs with these folks who were whispering about the 25th Amendment early on and didn't take any action. So the family separations and there's way too many to name here on our, unless we want a 6-hour long podcast. But I put some of the blame on this person who authored the op-ed and their inside resistance, guys who are keeping their heads down and, trying to just thwart Trump at every opportunity.
Well, and there were a lot of us, probably including you all, who are Trump critics who very early on in the administration raised the question of the 25th Amendment. I mean, of course, now it's being raised by Elizabeth Warren. So you have a senator saying this is something that should be investigated. But I think early on, there were enough warning signs that the president was unstable that you had a lot of Trump critics raising the issue. And it was very easy to dismiss those critics as cranks or simply hyperpartisan or even conspiracy theorists in some way, or even in some sense disloyal to the Constitution, because no one in power was saying the same thing, because no one in the administration was saying the same thing. And now we find out that they were secretly having exactly the same conversations that some of the Trump critics were having in public. And I think that's frustrating, too.
Yeah, the same thing happened with the whole Russia investigation itself, where early on, I know that the DNC and people in the Hillary campaign were like, you guys, listen, Russia is, working with Trump to elect Trump, but they couldn't come out and say it. And even the New York Times wouldn't put it in that headline they released in October of 2016 because it could have sounded insane. It could have sounded tinfoil hat-like, and nobody was willing to kind of step out on that ledge.
Well, and that's one of the most infuriating moments of the entire Trump-Russia investigation is that late October 2016 New York Times article, which told the American people 10 days before an election that the FBI had no credible evidence linking Trump to Russia or suggesting that there was anything untoward happening. And I certainly don't blame Christopher Steele for seeing that that story in the New York Times, as he did, and withdrawing from his partnership with the FBI at that point, because as a former MI6 agent, he said to himself, something's not right here, that the intelligence community would lie to the American people like this. And so when Glenn Simpson, the Fusion GPS founder, testified that that was the point at which Christopher Steele said, I need to withdraw from this partnership until I figure out what's going on at the FBI, I can really sympathize with that, because that's one of the big scandals of this whole story that hasn't been explored enough, is why the FBI misled the American people deliberately. They didn't say no comment. They misled the American people 10 days before an election about the information they had.
Right, and yeah, I think that October New York Times article, like you said, it's one of the pivotal points in this whole investigation. They came out and apologized in some other, I can't remember the story that had come out in the last, it was probably like 4 or 5 months ago, and they said, yeah, we did that, our bad, but too late.
Well, and it's kind of like during the run-up to the Iraq War. You had Judith Miller writing articles telling people that Saddam had weapons of mass destruction, and then later on you get a sort of slight, maybe not entirely fully motivated or sincere mea culpa. But by that point, the damage has been done. And I think that after what happened in the aughts, you would have thought that the New York Times would be even more careful. And frankly, given what Comey and McCabe knew in October about what was happening in the New York field office, you would have thought that they would be very careful about what statements were made to the media, because they should have been concerned that the Trumplandia adherents up in New York were going to be leaking false information to the press. And so I don't know why Main Justice and, frankly, the DC headquarters of the FBI weren't more on top of what was going on in terms of leaks to the press throughout October 2016.
Yeah, well, apparently that's now being investigated. I haven't heard any updates on it, but the New York field office is also a big part of this. And I personally think that it was pretty much blackmail. And Comey had to come out with that letter to Congress saying that they were going to reopen the investigation, because if he didn't do it, the New York field office was going to do it, and it would have been 10 times worse.
Well, and, people, I think that's right. And I think that people always ask, well, why hasn't Comey come out and forcefully said, I was being blackmailed by my own agents? And I think even as you hear me say that, the question answers itself. Jim Comey has always put protecting the FBI first. If he comes out and he spills the beans on what's happening internally at the FBI in October 2016, he's essentially saying that the FBI had a significant effect, not just him, but the whole organization, on the 2016 election. So I think what's unfortunate is his attempts to protect the reputation of the FBI have kept us from getting the full story of what the New York field office was doing in terms of being pro-Trump, and frankly, in terms of a small group of individuals who were acting in a conspiratorial way to support Trump in October 2016. Hopefully we'll get that story when the Inspector General issues his report on it. He has said that he left that out of the first report that he issued because he has more to say on it. I just don't know when that follow-up report is coming.
Yeah, no, me neither. And we've been waiting for it too. And you're right. Comey is very big on the whole reservoir of trust within the FBI, and we've spent decades building it. And if he turns around and says something negative or somehow gives a black eye to the FBI, then that whole reservoir is just gone. He's very dramatic about it. So also, I wanted to switch gears here a little bit. I've been hounded on Twitter since you announced that you were going to be on Mueller, She Wrote. I have been asked by multiple people about a tweet that you penned last March saying that Nastya Rybka, that's the sex coach who did the video on Deripaska's boat when he was downloading his Manafort brief to the Prime Minister of Russia, and you tweeted that she happened to be in Athens or near Athens when Papadopoulos was there at the same time. So could you tell us a little bit about that, and if you have any updates on Rybka?
Sure. So what Putin critics like Alexei Navalny and others outside of Russia have done is attempted to, if they can, track the movements of Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska, who is a very close Putin ally, one of the 2 or 3 oligarchs he trusts the most, to track his movements by seeing where the woman he was having an affair with was at various points. Nastya Rybka, obviously not her real name, is very active on social media, or was very active on social media, of course, before her arrest in Thailand. And she posted a lot of pictures of herself, but also some pictures of herself with Oleg Deripaska. And so people have tried to track her movements, not because we want to know where she was at any point in time. That's not particularly important, but where Oleg Deripaska was. As far as George Papadopoulos and how that intersects with, or his story intersects with Nastya Rybka, I think that there's a feeling among a lot of people that with the sentencing memo from Papadopoulos, with the indictment from Papadopoulos that came in October of 2017, we have still not gotten the full story of what Papadopoulos was up to, particularly what he was up to in May of 2016, when he made 2 trips to Greece in early May, one in late May, the second trip when Vladimir Putin was also in Athens. And during those trips, he met with Kremlin allies within the Greek government. We haven't really gotten the full story on that, though Papadopoulos did just reveal that he told the Greek foreign minister during one of his 2 May 2016 trips about what Joseph Mifsud had told him regarding the Clinton emails, meaning Papadopoulos told the Greek government that the Russians had stolen Clinton emails, and he told them that in May 2016. So there's a lot more to that story, clearly, that we don't know. So it appears that Nastya Rybka may have been around Athens, not necessarily in the city, but on an island very near Athens around the same time that Papadopoulos was in Greece in May 2016. And that simply, we don't have an answer for exactly what that means. It just tells us that there's something we are not being told about Papadopoulos' role on the campaign and what he did when he was sent by the campaign to Greece twice in May 2016. And I think that that sort of spills over into this question of whether Papadopoulos told anyone on the campaign about the Clinton emails. Once again, people are sensing that we are not getting the full story. Is it because Papadopoulos is still lying? Is it because Mueller has told him he can't publicly release certain information? We don't know, and I don't want to speculate. But that Nastya Rybka sighting in Greece in May 2016 says there's more to this story than what we know right now.
Oh, I see, because potentially if Rybka was there, Deripaska could be in tow.
That's correct. And we already know, in fact, we actually have a pretty long list of the people who Papadopoulos met with and who he traveled with in early May and late May 2016. That was widely reported on by the Greek press. So we got a pretty good sense of who he was meeting with. And in one case, or actually in 2 cases, because in both early May and late May, he met with Panos Kamenos, who is the Greek defense minister, not the foreign minister, but the defense minister. And Panos Kamenos runs a think tank that is in a memorandum of understanding with the Russian Institute for Strategic Studies, which is the outfit that authored the Russian election interference campaign and gave it to Putin, and then the Kremlin executed it. So Panos Kamenos is very closely tied to the Kremlin. Papadopoulos was meeting with him. If he was also having some sort of a meeting with Oleg Deripaska, and I'm not saying that we know that, but that certainly is a possibility if Nastya Rybka is on a yacht in the Aegean Sea around that time. Let's be clear, she doesn't own a boat. She was telling people that she was being taken around the world by Oleg Deripaska. So it's not just that she travels a lot, it's that she actually was being taken to places. So if Oleg Deripaska was there, then Papadopoulos was engaged in much higher level negotiations with the Russians than we realize. And that could be the basis for his cooperation deal. And I will say further, could be the sort of information Mueller would not want him to reveal even in a sentencing memo. So there's still a chance that we're only seeing a sliver of the George Papadopoulos story.
Okay, and so do you think that might be why in a recent interview, Papadopoulos says that he now doesn't remember even telling Alexander Downer, that's the Australian diplomat in a London bar, about having dirt on Hillary, like maybe because he's been told not to say it?
Well, let's put it this way. That's the most important fact, the most valuable piece of evidence that he could possibly hold based on what we know right now. So either he is guarding that piece of evidence because for some benighted reason he is still attempting to protect people within the Trump administration, specifically people on the National Security Advisory Committee that Trump gathered together in March 2016 and that Papadopoulos was on, or he is guarding that incredibly valuable piece of intelligence because he has been instructed to do so by the special counsel. Again, I don't claim to know which it is, but I will say this. Papadopoulos had a demonstrated history of immediately reporting to his superiors any information he received from the Russians. Joseph Mifsud, Ivan Timofeev, the Olga Bologradova, who was pretending to be Putin's niece, he immediately passed on information to the campaign. And this was the most valuable piece of intelligence he got. So the idea that he wouldn't pass this on or doesn't remember that he passed it on, let alone that he told the Greek foreign minister this, but wouldn't have told the campaign, is absolute nonsense. I say that as a former criminal defense attorney, as a former criminal investigator. You couldn't find a criminal defense attorney or criminal investigator who would believe Papadopoulos on that. No one would.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So before I let you go, Seth, and before I want you to talk about, how people can find your book, Proof of Collusion, I wanted to ask you, I know that you've said it's not Pence who authored this op-ed. Who do you think it is, based on all of your reading?
I'll tell you honestly that I have actually given it very little thought because I'm not sure that it matters. And let me tell you why I say that. If we are to believe the letter, and of course it's very difficult to judge its credibility when you don't know who wrote it, and you certainly don't know why they wrote it. If we're to believe the letter, there is an entire resistance, and that's now a self-described resistance, quote unquote, within the White House that involves many people. And I think that that's what the White House forgets as it's hunting for the author. The author said that he or she was part of a giant resistance. So it doesn't matter who wrote it, because that person is presumably in cahoots with, could it be 10, 12, dozens of other people throughout the government who are part of this effort. So for that reason, I kind of tuned out on the speculation of who wrote the letter, because to me, the broader point has already been made. There is a right-wing resistance within this White House that is apparently seeking to undermine this president, and they are doing so because they think he's a danger to the world, and yet they will not do anything to advance the 25th Amendment.
Excellent. I agree. We just like to guess, but I do agree with all of that. So tell, you have a new book, Proof of Collusion. Tell my listeners where they can get it.
So the book comes out November 13th. It can be pre-ordered right now, basically everywhere: Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes. You go to the Simon & Schuster website, because Simon & Schuster is publishing it. You will find it. And I want people to know that this is, number one, it's a massive book of proof of collusion. We're talking over 500 pages, and we're talking over 2,000 endnotes, and a team of fact checkers, not one or two, a team of fact checkers and attorneys looking at this book. So this will be as sourced, as cited, and as fact-checked a Trump-Russia book as there has been. This is not me writing my opinions or my speculations or my desires for the Trump-Russia investigation. It is the record of the public investigation of Trump-Russia collusion. Everything the public knows, which is far more than I think people realize, is contained in this book. So while you are waiting for Robert Mueller to release his report, which could be a very long time from now, while you are waiting for Congress to do anything, which you'll be waiting forever on because 5 of the 6 investigations have shuttered and the Senate Intel investigation is stalled, this book will summarize for you everything that is part of the public investigation. And as I said, it's going to shock people because we know so much more than I think many people realize we do. Even people who watch this case on a daily basis probably have not come across more than 90% of what's in the book. And I know that that's hard to believe, but read the book and you'll see that it's true.
All right, everybody catch that. And you can follow Seth at Seth Abramson on Twitter. Is that correct? At Seth Abramson?
Yes, that's right.
And he's got incredible threads and theories, and he spells it all out for you. Like you said, all those thousands of footnotes and annotations in the book, he does that. He gives you all the information that you're going to need to make up your mind for yourself. And so, Seth, I appreciate you coming on today, and I hope you have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Then Thursday, a CNBC report came out saying Trump said he's willing to meet with Mueller, but doesn't want to be set up in a perjury trap, basically admitting he's incapable of not lying. Giuliani then told the Associated Press a little bit later in the week Trump will not answer any questions in writing or in person on obstruction. It's kind of, I dare you to subpoena us.
Right.
Basically. So we'll see what happens with that. Also Thursday, during a Trump rally in Montana, we met Plaid Shirt Guy. So Plaid Shirt Guy was an audience member standing behind Trump on TV during his speech. And Plaid Shirt Guy kept making, oh my God, this guy is an idiot faces, like right behind Trump and directly into the camera. Here's a clip from the speech where Trump tries to say the word anonymous.
The latest active resistance is the op-ed published in the failing New York Times by an anonymous, gutless coward. You just look.
So about halfway through Trump's speech, plaid shirt guy was quickly ushered out and replaced by a rally staffer that would make more supportive and loving faces to our dear leader.
Making white nationalist symbols, though, totally fine.
Yeah, yeah. Or O
fine.
faces behind Trump. Either one.
Yeah, Zena Gersh, was that her name in the Kavanaugh hearing? She was totally making those. And I put it out there and people were like, come on, she's trolling you. Stop it, you're falling for dumb stuff. And then she did it on the second day.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not crazy. But yes, also she might be trolling me, troll level 9 million. And I fell for it. But that's a huge troll.
It is, yeah.
That's a huge white power troll. And she's half Mexican.
God. Dude, some of the craziest Trump supporters I know are Latino men.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, I had an illegal immigrant tell me about Hillary's emails, like how that was why they wouldn't vote for her.
Wow.
I know.
I'm not in a place to publicly go into psychoanalyzing that, being my white self, but...
Yeah. It's a very interesting, diverse group of,
Could
people.
be a machismo thing. Trump definitely has that in spades.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know. But I thought it was odd because everyone's like, she's half Mexican. Her grandma's a quarter Jewish, something. She's not making a white power symbol. And I'm like, she also worked on the family separation immigration policy with Stephen Miller, who's been seen making that little gesture quite a bit as well. Oh, no, he's just buttoning his coat.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm sorry, guys. And if you're mad at me that I even spent any time on this, it's important to me. I hate Nazis.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, her name's Zena Bash.
Zena?
Zena Bash.
Zena Bash. What did I say? Gersh?
Gersh, I think, yeah.
Gersh.
Like xenophobe.
Yeah,
Zena, warrior princess.
She loves her first name.
I loved her. She
Zena,
was
white power princess.
She's a lesbian, right? Oh, I thought Zena was a lesbian.
She was. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah. She wasn't white power, but this girl is.
Got it.
At least I don't think warrior princess was white power. So probably not.
I question the undertones of everything in our culture now.
So anyway, hats off to plaid shirt guy, whoever you are. If you're listening, I hope you find the time to call into this podcast. We'd love to talk to you. Then Friday, Obama gave his first speech in a while, like during this whole presidency, and he used the opportunity to completely unload on Trump. A lot of us were just so happy to see him again and get a chance to hear someone that can form sentences and cohesive thoughts.
Yeah, that was refreshing for sure.
It was definitely incredible. My favorite part when he was like, how hard is that? How hard is it to say that you hate Nazis, or you don't support Nazis? I was like, right, exactly. Both sides, that whole thing. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's very hard when you are one.
Exactly.
That's true. A story dropped Friday after Trump tweeted at Sessions to investigate the op-ed that Sessions is preparing to be fired. Last week, we talked about Trump wanting to fire Sessions after the midterms, which of course would impact the Mueller investigation if he were able to get another one confirmed instead of just elevating Rosenstein. Just one of a million reasons we have to retake the House in November. I wish it was sooner. I really do, because this Kavanaugh hearing is killing me.
Oh, yeah.
Then we found out a Russian hacker that targeted financial institutions like Fidelity Investments, Dow Jones, JP Morgan, and Chase. He had higher aspirations than the guy who hacked LinkedIn. He was hacking that in 2012 to 2015. He was arrested in Georgia, the country, not our state, and he was extradited to the United States. His name is Tyron, and he faces up to 97 years in prison for, get this, conspiracy to commit computer hacking, wire fraud, computer hacking conspiracy to commit securities fraud, conspiracy to violate the Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act, conspiracy to commit wire fraud and bank fraud, and aggravated identity theft. This story is not as of yet connected to the election interference or the Mueller investigation, but I wanted to bring it up because the list of charges will be similar to what a lot of Trump associates will face for their conspiracy. So when people ask you what is collusion, that is collusion. If we learn that the arrest was directly associated with proffer from someone in the Mueller investigation, like maybe Papadopoulos, he will count as a rando in the Fantasy Indictment League, but for now it's not connected. It's not connected, and we'll be seeing if there are any connections to Mueller. If they're reported, we'll let you know. Also Friday, the Daily Beast reported that 2 DOJ officials have been passively resisting Trump since he took office. Additionally, a staffer from the White House was quoted in Axios saying there are dozens of resistors in the White House. So it seems like that op-ed might have opened Pandora's box. People are coming forward now. It wasn't me. Then we learned that the National Park Service intentionally edited photos of Trump's inauguration to make the crowd look bigger.
Oh, my God.
Somebody at the Parks Department came out and admitted we doctored those photos.
That's crazy. It's been almost a year. Are we too like accustomed to this to not care about that? Because that would have been huge a year ago. Like
that's some North Korea shit.
Yeah.
Did you say 2 years ago?
January 20th.
Oh my God, has it been 2 years?
2016.
It has. Yeah, 2016.
Oh my God.
Yeah, almost 2 years.
God, fucking longest 2 years of my life.
I know. It seems like a million.
I think this has all been a simulation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm betting
just
on
kidding.
that now.
I'm totally just
so
kidding.
does Elon Musk, whose stock just dropped like 6% because he smoked weed on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Yeah, he talks about time travel and solving the world's issues. Takes one hit of a blunt, burned him.
Wouldn't it be funny if Elon Musk got high and just started talking reasonable?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be great.
Like he's all, time travel, we're in a computer simulation, the odds are 99%, and then he takes a hit of weed and he's like, I like cheese.
Aw.
Yeah. He gets less, like the more he smokes weed.
It's like a
the
South
less
Park episode.
stonery questions he asks. You know?
That'd be funny, yeah.
Because he's pretty wackadoo already. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think maybe weed would have the opposite effect on him, but I don't know. I didn't listen to the pod. I'll have to check it out.
You should. It's interesting.
The Daily Beast also reported that in a court document that was unsealed, Shira Bashard alleged that Broidy demanded she get an abortion. This is the lady who was paid $1.6 million to get an abortion. She also said he refused to wear a condom and did not tell her he had genital herpes.
Oh my...
She also alleged that Keith Davidson, that's the guy who I think was in cahoots with Cohen, her former attorney, told her that Broidy would sue her for child support if she kept the baby. And the court document said that Broidy would push her to drink excessively so she'd be more compliant towards his physical abuse.
Oh my God.
And that he would hurt her during sex. But what this means is that it wasn't Trump. Guys, remember when we were like thinking it was Trump and he was taking the fall?
Yeah, this is probably worse, actually.
It's not Trump,
Yeah.
so take beans off of that.
Mm-hmm.
But damn, Broidy is an asshole.
Yeah, he's the worst.
I almost put like a trigger warning before that. It's fucking horrible.
Isn't it? Yeah, I mean, it
Could he
gives
not
me
be my boyfriend anymore?
Yeah, you're allowed.
Thank you.
Yeah,
if it gets
if your
that bad, we're out.
commits sexual assault, can
I'm
they
officially
be
leaving him, guys.
Good job.
Thank you.
We're here to support
It
you.
was Stockholm the whole
It's
time.
not funny
really.
anymore.
It's not funny at all anymore, actually. I'm triggered.
That's absolutely horrible that he would do that. And then we've got Manafort making his wife do orgies and like, who the fuck are these people?
Oh yeah,
The worst.
I mean, did we
I mean, the
expect
best.
anything different? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so gross. Then Papadopoulos finally got sentenced, and they only gave him 14 days. I'm sure we all remember he was charged with lying to the FBI about his contact with Russians during the election, and he is the first Trump advisor to be sentenced, but he's not the first guy to go to jail in the Mueller probe. That distinct honor goes to Van der Zwaan, son of Herman Kahn, Alpha Bank executive. He already served his sentence, and then they deported his ass.
Immediately.
Yeah. They were like, no tall, better-looking white lawyers than me allowed in this country. He was cute.
Yeah, he was.
Oh, yeah. Will there be like an award show for the Mueller probe, like cutest criminal or like first to get arrested?
Yeah, grossest rapist.
Yeah.
We should have some
Most
what we call
dramatic court
Muellers, the Mueller Awards.
The Mueller,
that's so
yeah,
funny.
The probies.
The probies. Oh my God, AG, that's brilliant.
The probies.
I just like the word probies.
And then can the award be like a pap smear thing?
Oh yeah, we could have all sorts of different.
I'm all for it. Let's get some sponsors on board with this.
Speculum Award. It's cold.
Yeah.
Put it in the oven. Put it in the speculum oven. Shit's cold, man. God. Although I've started to get hot flashes, so
Oh.
yay for that. It's gonna make that extra fun. Anyway, Papadop going to jail 14 days. Poor thing. Then what I think is the big story this week. It dropped Friday, and this is gonna sound weird, but stick with me. It's that Putin and Russia rejected Turkey's call for peace in Syria. This is huge. Putin appeared at a trilateral meeting with Iran and Turkey and said Russia would continue its fight against terrorists in Idlib province. That's the last stronghold of the Syrian opposition against Assad. Assad is the terrible leader of Syria that we oppose currently. Syrian military forces backed by Russia and Iran are getting ready to launch a major offensive there soon. Turkey and their President Erdogan had long backed some rebel groups there and has told Russia and Iran that it didn't want Idlib turning into a bloodbath. However, Russia and Iran are allies of Syria's President Assad, and Russian airstrikes backed by Iranian fighters have happened to fight rebels in Syria on Assad's behalf. Iran's President Rouhani said Fighting terrorism in Idlib is an unavoidable part of the mission of restoring peace. So basically, we have to have war if we want to have peace, which sounds like fucking to be a virgin. It's weird. The UN is concerned that a war will create a huge humanitarian and refugee disaster. Not to mention, the U.S. envoy for Syria has said that there's evidence that chemical weapons are being prepared. And Idlib has 2.9 million civilian residents, 1 million of which are children. And I bring this up not just because of the humanitarian implications that we have troops there that Russia would be attacking. But I bring this up because I'm also wondering where the United States was during this summit. Our president was tweeting at our AG trying to get him to investigate his political enemies, and it's embarrassing. And how often, how are they going to respond to this extremely important issue, Trump? Because we've said in the past that we are against Assad. There are some problems with that, though, because some of the rebels that are holding Idlib are Al-Qaeda. But considering that Trump is fully compromised by Putin, and that we should be against Assad, it could be very tricky. And my point here is that Trump will be unable to respond cleanly because Putin has dirt on him. He's compromised, and that could cost lives, including our own U.S. troops. That is, if he even knew this meeting happened or where Syria is on a map or how to say it. It's terrifying, and this is the kind of story that matters. We'll be right back. Hey Mueller Junkies, today's episode is brought to you by Beachbody On Demand, and I have to tell you about this thing. It's an on-demand streaming service that gives you instant access to a whole lot of super effective workouts you can do from the comfort of your own living room, 24/7, or your office, which is where I do them. And we've talked about this a lot on the show, how important self-care is. And part of self-care for me, and part of making sure my mental health stays stable in these crazy news times, is to exercise. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Beachbody On Demand. So you've heard of a lot of these exercises, the P90X stuff, the Insanity, and the T25 Focus and things like that. They're all part of that PiYo, which is a Pilates yoga thing. My personal favorite is T25 because it's 25 minutes, 5 days a week. You can do it at home or in the office, and it takes, I can do it in a super short amount of time. And I've had amazing results. I'm on week 6 right now of T25, and I've lost about 18 pounds.
Damn.
So, in 6 weeks. It really works. I mean, you can't eat a bunch of crap on top of it, but you have to change your diet a little bit too. But I just love how effective it is and how fast you get results, because that's one of the main things that kept me from dieting and exercise programs in the past, is that I wouldn't see any results for several weeks and I would get discouraged and I would quit. But the first week I lost like 6 pounds. It's nuts. I've lost 2 sizes. So I really want you guys to try this out. And because you're listeners, right now you can get a free trial membership by texting AG to 303030. So text AG to 303030 and then tweet at us and let us know how it's going. I want to see how you guys do, because I absolutely love these. You get full access to the entire platform for free, all the workouts, and they have all sorts of levels. They have like hip hop abs, which is like super low impact, but then they go all the way up to Insanity Max 30, which is so hard. But I did that one for a while too. I loved it. So anyway, again, text AG to 303030 and then tweet at us at Mueller She Wrote to let us know how it goes. And thanks for listening. All right, welcome back. Hot notes. Okay, so today, Jordan is going to talk to us about Fear, the forthcoming book by legendary journalist Bob Woodward, who broke the Watergate story with Carl Bernstein originally. But first, a Bloomberg article came out this week that posits that Mifsud, the professor that Papadop connected with over Hillary emails, could be dead. We talked about this possibility last week a little bit with Grant Stern. So, Jaleesa, what do you have for us on Mifsud?
Yeah, so this week in Dead Men Tell No Tales, basically the committee put out a statement, the DNC committee put out a statement on the Hill, indicating that they used a private investigator to find Mifsud, who was missing for several months, and on the day that Papadop, aka Coffee Boy, was sentenced to jail for lying about contacts with Mifsud, the DNC lawyers from a separate case raised the possibility that Mifsud may be dead. So Mifsud was believed to be a Russian agent, and the DNC, who's suing Russia, the Trump campaign, and WikiLeaks, said in a court filing on Friday that they believed all the defendants in the case have been served with the complaint, quote, with the exception of Mifsud, who is missing and may be deceased. And they didn't say anything else about it. So they just dropped that bombshell and just kept on moving. So basically a mysterious key witness in the Mueller investigation who used Pompadop to set up Trump might be dead. And they're like, yeah, well, we tried. And I don't know what else they can do or say about it. But there's going to be a hearing on the DNC lawsuit on September 13th, which is this Thursday. So that'll be interesting. I'm just really sad for the kid. Yeah. Didn't he have like a love child out there or something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel fucked up now because in earlier episodes we were joking about how he like could have died and now his kid's not going to have a dad.
Exactly. He like really did die.
He had
It's fucking sad.
Fiance who was pregnant at the time and now he would have an infant. Yeah.
Yeah.
No more than one, I don't think.
Yeah.
I can't really remember the timeline, but it is. It's really horrible. And that just kind of, shows the level to which Putin will go.
Yeah, falling into that circle is just fucking dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Stay away.
Yeah, I mean, the threats that exist when you enter into work with him.
Well, even working against him, is a threat. So it's like,
especially.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to be a good person and still not get murdered by Putin somehow.
Yeah.
It's when you get really into it, I guess.
I guess maybe he could have just been blackmailed or something, and that's why he was sort of doing his bidding. We speculated on that, I remember, when we first started reporting.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, he probably was a piece of shit, but you're right. It would be interesting if he was blackmailed, and that could have been a part of it, or a combination. And
yeah.
It's just sad.
My real hope, is that he is in U.S. protective custody somewhere.
Oh, hell yeah.
That'd be an interesting plot twist, yeah.
The Dems wouldn't know that when they filed that lawsuit.
Right.
Nobody would.
Yeah. Here's to hope.
That's the idea.
I mean, hey, we can. It's just the news just broke. We can see what happens for sure.
Yeah, we will. Well, I'm sure we'll hear more about it as that stuff comes out and as the hearing happens on September. What is it? 13th?
Yep, this Thursday.
Great. We'll definitely
follow
up next month or next
comes
week.
out. Yes,
next month we'll follow up whenever we feel like it.
Everything feels like an eternity now.
It does. All right. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And now, Jordan, tell us about the leaks from the forthcoming Bob Woodward book called Fear.
Yeah, so there's a book coming out by the dude, Bob Woodward, good old dude, who wrote, this was news to me because I'm young as fuck, obviously, so when I first heard his name, I'm like, who is that? But he's one of the most important journalists in the history of America, broke the Watergate scandal.
Cool story, bro.
Yeah, cool story, bro. And then went on to write a countless amount of books covering various topics. He even covered drug culture when John Belushi died, but most notably, he covers... he does an amazing job at covering past presidencies and current presidencies. And so he's writing one about Donald Trump. And some of the excerpts from the book leaked this week. The book is set to come out September 11th. And before I go into some of the leaks, I wanted to give you the story of the origin of the title because it's chilling slightly. It comes from a quote that Trump actually said in an interview in 2016. He said, "Real power is, I don't even want to use the word, fear."
I don't even want to use the word.
Did he say that or did you say that?
Trump said that.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to say before you say it, like as if he knew how wrong it was, but he's like, well, that's what I believe.
Yeah, really weird. Unrelated interview, but
still interesting, very insightful. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go through some of the stuff that comes out in this book, or we're expecting to see in the book. It's final copies are already made, so it's not going to change. So this is definitely in the book. First thing, Trump apparently wanted to assassinate Syrian President al-Assad. So remember when in April 2017, the U.S. launched a cruise missile strike against the Syrian regime airbase?
Oh, yeah.
So that was the walked back version of a military response to that chemical strike. Trump said, quote, "Let's fucking kill him. Let's go in. Let's kill the fucking lot of them." He told that to Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis, to which Jim Mattis said behind his back to senior staffers, quote, "We're not going to do any of that. We're going to be much more measured." Thank God for Mattis. Terrifying, though, to know. The main takeaway from that, obviously, is that Donald Trump is willing to reactively assassinate leaders around the world. I hesitate to even call him a leader, but you know what I mean.
And it's interesting because Assad is allied with Putin.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
Like, that's an interesting that he would be like, just kill him. He probably didn't know that. I'm guessing.
That's a good point.
Well, I mean, I don't think much of what Trump does is calculated, a lot of the time.
It's reactionary, like you were saying.
Yeah, so reactionary.
Impulsive.
But I do think immediately, as soon as he learns that he's a Putin ally, he's like, fuck. All right, well, I can't move forward on that. But thank God for Mattis still. Terrifying. So another thing that comes out is Trump apparently conceives of the North Korea issue as something that can be solved mano a mano. He says that the policy between America and North Korea basically boils down to quote unquote me versus Kim. So in a fall interview in 2017, Trump told Rob Porter about how he wanted to handle the ongoing nuclear tensions with North Korea, saying that essentially if the two can be boys, then people will be saved, which is an incredibly inflated and egotistical approach to take to North Korea, who has for decades and decades been a human rights abuser, and I don't need to go down the list, but to think that them having a good personal relationship is going to actually do the deed to solve that complex issue is ignorant and short-sighted and scary, because obviously that's not what's going to work. You want to say something?
Oh, totally. I was just going to agree with you, dude. It's like, it's ridiculous. I was going to think it's kind of sexist too, but the whole boys comment, maybe they didn't mean it that way, but it's like...
Oh, no, sorry. That was my...
okay.
Yeah, literally what he said was, he said, quote, oh, well, no, he did say man versus man. He said, this is all about leader versus leader, man versus man, me versus Kim.
Does he think mano a mano means man versus man?
That would explain a lot.
I think it means that.
No.
Does it not mean that?
Hand to hand.
Oh, sorry, everyone.
Which I guess parallel analogies. Yeah.
Manos, the hands of fate.
Oh, that would make sense. Just based on all the Westerns I've seen, Yinsen and everything.
Yeah.
High fives are mano y manos.
Yeah.
Oh, good point.
No, that makes, yeah. You know, I took French in high school. I regret it every day.
I took German. And in fact, I thought mano y mano meant man to man until I left Cleveland. So that shows you where I'm at.
Shout out to our Cleveland listeners.
Shout out.
I was really just saying it because I learned it recently.
Of course.
It was just to let you know what I knew about it. There.
Yeah. So basically, obviously, you know, their North Korean summit was wildly unsuccessful. Most recently, Trump canceled Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's trip to North Korea over disagreements and how, you know, they're refusing to essentially comply with denuclearizing themselves and whatever. He's an idiot, and he that's coming out in the book, I guess. The extent of his idiocy on North Korea. Another thing that leaked: Trump tried to withdraw the U.S. from a trade deal with South Korea. So this is really sad to me. Essentially what happened, so the U.S. has the U.S.-Korea Free Trade Agreement. And under this agreement, $145 billion in goods and services a year are traded between the two countries, and it's mostly tariff-free. So why this is important for South Korea, obviously it stimulates their economy. It keeps good relationships with us and them, and they're a huge ally to us, especially as we are working to protect them essentially against North Korea potentially. We have a program going over there where we're trying to develop technology that can, you know, detect missiles within some crazy short amount of time. And him threatening there was a letter on Trump's desk, we learned, that was going to pull us out of that agreement as soon as he signed it. And one of Trump's, Gary Cohn, he's Trump's top economic advisor, he was so fearful that Trump was going to sign this letter, he literally removed the letter from his desk. He said, quote, I stole it off his desk. I wouldn't let him see it. He's never going to see that document. Got to protect the country.
Damn.
That's crazy. That's so scary. And we go on to learn too in some of these leaks that this happens a lot. High up Trump staffers are essentially intervening themselves and just rogue trying to keep things under control. It's described as, you know, Woodward describes the tactic as no less than an administrative coup d'etat, and aligns exactly with the op-ed that came out this week. We also have 2,800 troops, 28,000 troops in South Korea. So if that deal goes awry, I imagine, I don't think our troops would stay there. I don't think our program would continue there to help them detect missiles. It would just completely break down relations with South Korea, which is essential for the safety of not only South Koreans, but North Koreans as well. Another takeaway, Egypt's president brought up the Russia investigation during a negotiation with Trump. So basically what he had said in April 2017, they were having a discussion about the release of Aya Hijazi, who is an Egyptian American aid worker that was in captivity in Egypt. And Egypt's leader and Donald were on the phone, and his name's Al-Sisi. He said to Donald Trump, Donald, I'm worried about this investigation. Are you going to be around? Donald Trump then told his personal lawyer that his chat with Sisi was like, a kick in the nuts.
What nuts?
That is very true. Yeah, he's got some kind of nuts, but there's some sort of GMO nuts, some alien nuts, evil alien nuts. Nudicles. Yeah.
Those are fake balls that you can buy to put in your dog's nutsack to make them look manly.
Oh my God, I didn't know that was a real thing.
Wow.
Or some guys who have testicular cancer will get a nudicle implanted so that they can have their ball back.
That's beautiful.
Or you hang them on the back of your pickup truck.
Yep, nudicles.
Yeah. So this is just this is like a little, I don't know if there's probably a jab coming from him to Donald Trump, but what's scary about this is the idea that there are leaders around the globe or dictators that we need to talk with and we need to have diplomacy with, but there's a potential that they're going to not take anything seriously that they're going to do with our country right now because they don't even know if Trump's going to be there. Mm-hmm. And it's likely that he's not going to be there. So that would be fair for them to not invest a certain level of seriousness in their negotiations with him on a variety of matters, and that's terrifying.
Like, why start a huge, long diplomatic negotiation if in 6 months Trump won't be there?
Exactly. It's pointless. Or not pointless, but, it seems like it is.
It feels pointless, yeah.
Okay, and finally, this is the last takeaway that I saw that I think is important. Mattis apparently said that Trump acts like a 5th or 6th grader. And then Mattis went around and denied that he said that or has ever said anything disparaging like that about the president, either in or behind his back. So that is troubling a little bit. It's good, obviously. I think that clearly Mattis thinks that Trump is not giving competent suggestions of what to do with the military because, the example of saying we should bomb and kill Assad immediately. And him not doing that. But what's a bummer to me about this is that it sort of can potentially maybe negate some of the things reported in the book if Mattis is turning around saying he didn't say that. But he has to say that.
Well, yeah, and we talked about that a little bit earlier. The reason Mattis and Kelly might be coming out and saying it's all lies, it's all bullshit, is because they feel like they have to stay in their positions in order to keep the world from exploding.
Yeah, just like that op-ed. Yeah, it's the same thing. They don't want to reveal their identity, but they still stand with them.
And that's something else, too. You just mentioned the op-ed. All of these things now, the book, the Woodward book, the Omarosa book, the David Wolf book, Fire and Fury, and the op-ed, and then these other subsequent people coming out saying that they've seen the same things, are all on the same page. So while you might not find the credibility in a book like Fire and Fury or Omarosa's book, Woodward's credibility is unmatched as a journalist.
Yeah.
And he's got tapes of everything, by the way. And we're going to be covering this book in our Mueller, She Wrote book club starting as soon as we get it, September 11th, whatever the week is after that. And that's going to be for patrons. So if you want to become a patron, you can still do it like for $1 at MuellerSheWrote.com. But the credibility of Woodward is impeccable. And in fact, Trump tweeted out in March of 2013 saying Woodward is, awesome because he had written a book about the Obama administration. And basically the big scandal that came out in that book was that Obama apparently might have been a bit heavier-handed on the moderate budget than he let on. Oh, my God.
Ooh, so scandalous. Yes.
But yeah, Woodward has, Trump tweeted like, great, Woodward, go ahead and try to, refute this Obama. Woodward's awesome. And now he's like,
amazing.
Yeah. And so now it's completely the opposite because it's somebody saying something bad about him.
Yeah. You'll notice when the book comes out that Trump and any direct quotes from him to Woodward do not exist because he tried to reach out to the White House for comment from the president and he got no response. And there's actually, you can look it up right now, the Washington Post published a conversation Woodward had with Trump after Trump learned that this book was being published. Trump's essentially saying, why didn't you call me, dude? You could have tried reaching all of the people that are around me. Why didn't you try? And Bob Woodward is like, I did. I reached out to at least 7 or 8 people. I tried very hard to get in contact with you. I talked to Kellyanne. She didn't get back to me. And then Donald's like,
I'm gonna get her.
He goes, yeah, let me get her in here.
So she jumps on the phone.
Yes. Oh my God.
And she's like, no, I remember that. I do. I remember it.
And that's a great voice for her. And you can tell so much about what it's like working for him with how she reacts. She says, well, I can tell you that I know that Donald is going to want to know the names of all the people that you asked to talk to him. So send over like a list of those names so they can essentially be fucking fired or
I think my favorite
lashed.
thing Kellyanne Conway said this week is she did an interview, I think, with CNN when they were asking her about the op-ed. And she said, Trump's going to suss out Trump they're going to suss themselves out or something like that. She completely misused the word suss, which is a British term.
Yeah, I don't even know what that word means.
So that's fine. But I mean, it means to figure it out. But she used it completely improperly, and I just laughed at her for a minute.
Yeah, not a surprise. But
she's a laughable person.
She really is. Yeah, but she got thrown under the bus. I'm sure Donald had some. I don't know why I keep calling him Donald this episode. I don't think I like it. Trump is going to have some words with her. And apparently Lindsey Graham did talk to Donald Trump. And on the phone, he does remember. He's like, oh, no, yeah, you're right. Lindsey Graham did come talk to me. And then it's like, all right, well, then that's your fucking fault then, isn't it? But of course he's not going to say
I guess I'll just have another bad book. Okay, I guess. Too bad. That's too bad.
Yeah.
You're going to have more than a couple.
I was going to say, that's not too bad. Yeah, that's like 5 bad. 5 bad books.
All right. Well, thank you for that reporting, and I look forward to reading that book. We're going to get it when everybody else gets it. So
we're doing a book club for it, right?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, they didn't send us an advance copy, though, so we have to wait until everyone else does.
That's fine.
That's okay.
The worst part about reading that book is going to be seeing his big fat face on the front every time we read it, because that's the cover.
Is it on there?
It's just enlarged, fills up the entire cover.
Gross. But it's all red, like in propaganda.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, I want to go over the Kavanaugh hearings that started this week. So what does that have to do with Russia and Mueller, you might ask?
Have you discussed Mueller or his investigation with anyone at Kasowitz, Benson, and Torres, the law firm founded by Mark Kasowitz, President Trump's personal lawyer? Be sure about your answer, sir.
Well, I'm not remembering, but if you have something you want to...
That clip went on for about 8 minutes, and he was worse than when when they asked Manafort, in our opening sequence. Well, that's what he said. That's what our position is. It was like that. He was, I don't know. And then a Republican senator interjected and said, "This isn't fair. Law firms are like rabbits, and they're always multiplying and changing off new strings, and you can't know everyone who works at a law firm." Ooh. But it's clear she was asking about a specific person she couldn't name because it's from a committee confidential document. But that's a really interesting piece, and it ties directly into the Mueller investigation, because if Kavanaugh and Mueller, or if Kavanaugh and Trump's lawyers were talking, that's a problem, particularly if they were talking about Mueller. And apparently she's got documents that say that. What were you going to say?
Oh, no. No.
It just sucks.
Yeah.
Then one thing that I noticed a lot were the protests that first started from the very get-go, from the moment that the hearings began. Protesters shouting, "Vote no, be a hero," and they were dragged out one by one. Over 70 were arrested the first day. I don't have a total for the week, but
wow,
it's a lot of protesters. It seems like more than usual. That happens a lot. It happened with Gorsuch. It never happens when Democrats appoint judges, but it happened a lot for that. So
because liberals are just crazy.
No, we just want rights for you. It's weird. There's nothing to protest. And that those are the protests when Trump, like a couple hours later, this should be illegal. It's embarrassing. You know what? You're embarrassing. Then another tactic they tried, the Republicans tried to pull, was that the night before they were uploading 42,000 documents into this reader program that takes a while for the things to upload. They were all finally finished uploading at 6:41 the next morning, and the hearing started at 9:30. So all the Democrats tried to make a point of order that they wanted to enter a motion to delay the hearings because they haven't had a chance to look at all the documents. And they just kept saying, no, you can't, as point of order, we're not in executive session, this is a hearing. But then they used that as an excuse to do something different that, like, later on, they were like, no, we're not in hearing, we're in executive session, so you can't bring that. They're like, what the fuck are we in, and what can we do? And because what the hell, bro? And it was just really difficult to watch that first day. They didn't even get to his opening statements until the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah.
Because everyone was objecting.
Right. And when they started, too, the chairman would only talk over women explicitly.
Yeah.
As soon as any males that were resisting started speaking, he would let them have the floor.
He's an angry little fucker, too.
Dude.
Well, you just listen to me. I'm Chuck Grassley.
I will not lose control.
Either I run the committee or the committee runs me. And I'm just tired of these old fucking white dudes, like,
yeah,
in charge of, I have I have reproductive privilege. I am beyond the age of where I would need an abortion. But God damn it, that pisses me off so badly. Like, you have to, how can you not have all the documents and give people adequate time to review them? My team reviewed them all. No, you didn't. I was hoping that one of the Democratic senators would start asking questions from the 42 documents to be like, really? Did you review them all? Well, what's this? And what's this? And like,
oh, yeah.
You can't expect me to remember 42,000 documents. He's just so mad. Like, I hope his life sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I feel about him maybe, he annoys me half as much as Trey Gowdy.
Half as much, yeah.
He's
Gowdy
the worst person to watch on C-SPAN.
Jim Jordan,
but
and
he's
Gowdy.
pretty bad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. Jim Jordan. Yeah. To the chairman's credit, though, I hate to say that, but he did admit that he has been ran over by the committee, and he allowed the precedent that was set by him being bulldozed by them essentially to continue at one point.
He did say,
I have to give him some credit for that.
Yeah, he was like, well, I let everyone talk as long as they want. I can't take it away now. And that's why he was like, either you run the committee or the committee runs you. God damn it, flabbity flea. Oh, well, I guess I'll have to let you talk. Yep. But I'm not going to entertain any, motions, not even a motion to vote on it, or, it was...
Yeah.
It's like they didn't give a shit about the rules of the Senate.
No, and they said that they should have been able to hire people to look over all the documents. Are you what are you talking about? Maybe I just don't know how Washington works, and it's actually conceivable, but it just, to anyone else that's listening that's an actual citizen, that sounds ridiculous.
Right, because think about it. Let's say you got 42,000 documents and you hire 420 people each to review 1,000 documents, and then you go, is that right? Yeah, no, 42 people to do 1,000 documents, or 420 to do 100 documents. Then you go, all right, review them all, and then you split it all up, and then you go, all right, so how am I going to get all of their knowledge into my fucking head so that I can ask questions? You can't do it unless you're in the Matrix and you have a program uploaded, and now you know jujitsu and what's in the 42,000 documents. So it wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm. The Republicans are robots. That's why they could do it.
Oh my God.
Oh, they're the men in the suits, right? Yeah.
You're right.
Agents, Russian agents.
Sometimes I think we should have a computer as the Supreme Court. Like, just a computer. They know what's up. Like, they have all the law, and they know everything.
Futurama style. Yeah.
Totally.
Like, what is love?
People should be able to love who they want to be in. I think it'd be great. Anyway, nice robots. Wednesday night, we tweeted out that the Democrats, I was like, you should just release the documents. Just release them. If you know what's in them and they're really important, just release them. What are they going to do? They could expel you from the Senate. That would require 67 votes. They're not going to fucking get that.
Nah, no one's going to bother.
So I tweeted at Booker and Leahy and Feinstein and a couple others. I was like, just do it. Just release them. Then they did the next morning. I don't think it's because I told them to. But
well, maybe you and people like you, know?
It'd be nice, but I don't think so. They're like, oh, look, Mueller, she wrote, says we should just release the documents. She's right. We hadn't thought about that before. Thank you for pointing that out, you genius.
I read all of our tweets.
So a handful of senators released emails that were supposed to be committee confidential, a break in the law. But what's interesting is Burke is the guy who decided what was committee confidential. And Senator Cory Booker brought that up to the committee. Committee confidential is designated usually a designation reserved for a handful of documents that could be sensitive, such as like this guy had a DUI or some criminal history or something. And Burke is a private lawyer. Cory Booker's like, who the fuck is this guy? In fact, he's currently the lawyer representing Bannon, Priebus, and McGahn in the Mueller investigation. And remember when we said that perhaps Burke was advising those three not to answer questions in congressional committees? Maybe their side didn't want the GOP to learn what they knew. And I was wondering for a second, and then I stopped. But I was wondering if this withholding of the Kavanaugh documents was for the same reason. Like if you listen to the Kamala Harris line of questioning, it's clear Kavanaugh had discussions about Mueller with someone at Kasowitz's law firm. So maybe this is part of the obstruction case? I don't know. That's pretty far-fetched. But why else would Burke have been given that job? And who gave it to him? That's what I want to know.
Good questions, yeah. I'm curious.
So one of the emails that they released, quote, I am not sure. Okay, so there's so many documents. I'm only going to go over the ones that I thought were like super important. And what was interesting is the Mueller document that Kamala Harris was referring was not released. And that could also be because you don't want to, it's an open and ongoing investigation.
The Mueller document about him talking to someone from that law firm, you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, or whatever email it was, or however she knew, whatever the document said that she knew that he had talked to somebody at the Kasowitz law firm about the Mueller investigation. That did not get released. But one of the things was an email that he wrote about Roe v. Wade, where he basically says it's not settled law. He says, quote, I am not sure that all legal scholars refer to Roe as the settled law of the land at the Supreme Court level, since the court can always overrule its precedent, and 3 current justices on the court would do so. So that could be very important to Murkowski and Collins, who are pro-choice Republicans. You just need a couple people. And
that's terrifying.
So right now, what you should be doing is calling Murkowski, not McCaskill, Murkowski and Collins, because they are pro-choice Republicans. They're women, and they've heard this now, and Kavanaugh doesn't think Roe is settled. That's frightening. That's Handmaid's Tale frightening. It was also revealed in the documents that Kavanaugh has views way outside the mainstream on whether or not a president is above the law. Like, he's the only judge in the whole land that thinks that the president could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, which John Dean testified to. He said, so what Kavanaugh is saying is Trump could shoot somebody in cold blood on Fifth Avenue and not have to face any criminal prosecution or investigation. That's
exactly
the most ridiculous thing ever. It's been settled several times that the president is not above the law. U.S. v. Nixon, for example, U.S. v. Clinton. I mean, it's come out that Clinton could face civil lawsuit from the lady, and it's settled law. But Kavanaugh's like, it's not settled. I can overturn it. It's like, fuck you. Sorry. We also found out that Kavanaugh lied to the Senate committee a few times back in 2004 and 2006. We found out he lied about not handling the Judge Pickering nomination. He was a very controversial nomination under the Bush White House. And the documents the Dems released showed he did work on a lot of the Pickering nomination. He was kind of central in it. It also came out in 2004 and 2006. He lied to the Senate, particularly Leahy, saying he never saw any of the stolen Democratic Miranda memos. Basically, that was a whole tranche of memos that were stolen from the Democrats and given to the Republicans so that they could basically
use it for political reasons.
Use it for political reasons. And he said he didn't have any of that. But it turns out there was an email to Brett Kavanaugh with the subject spying all about the Miranda documents, like directly to him. So he lied. And it also came out that he lied about having anything to do with discussions on the legality of warrantless wiretapping and enhanced interrogation techniques when he was a staff secretary at the Bush White House. Another thing that came out was Kavanaugh had referred to birth control as abortion-inducing drugs in one of his rulings, which, first of all, is not how lady parts work. Second of all, this means it's not just Roe that's in jeopardy, but contraceptives as well.
Yes.
That's terrifying.
It is. Sorry to laugh so hard. That's just so ridiculous. Is Plan B considered? Do you think he's talking about Plan B?
No, he's talking about birth control
What
pills.
a fucking idiot.
Not even Plan B. Not even RU-486, which was the actual abortion-inducing pill. Like, maybe he's confusing them.
I mean, I guarantee he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, so that wouldn't surprise me.
If I had to guess, it sounds crazy to even think, but, like, what if he thinks that it's just, like, the fact that it exists makes people think, like, I should go out and get it because I can.
No, he thinks it induces abortions.
Like,
he doesn't understand how the pill works. He doesn't fucking understand it. But there's Republican senators who think we pee out of our vagina holes. So
good point. They are some crazy
They
people.
don't understand how, you know what? And that's weird because they seem to have a huge appetite for weird sex stuff.
Let's stop voting for them, please.
In their defense, it took me until I was like 13 to figure that out.
Okay. So a 13-year-old girl has more knowledge about the female body than people who are regulating it.
Yeah.
It's messed up, man.
It is.
Yeah, I didn't understand about pee either for a while.
Yeah, the urethra was pretty weird. That was a weird discovery. My mom never told me about it.
I learned that like a month ago, though. So.
And mostly like a really inappropriate Aretha Franklin joke there. I'm not going to get it.
Too soon.
Way too soon.
All right, Senator Cory Booker noted in these hearings that Kavanaugh was not on the list of conservative judges provided to Trump by the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society. So basically, Trump, when he was running for office, said, I will pick a judge that is approved by the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society. These are two super conservative, anti-abortion, anti-choice, anti-gay marriage groups. And they are the ones who put these lists together. Kavanaugh wasn't on it until the Mueller probe started. And then his name just showed up on it. And he's the one who thinks that the president's above the law. Weird.
Yep.
And I talked about John Dean testifying. That was interesting. But more importantly to me was the line of questioning from Senator Harris about whether or not Kavanaugh had conversations with anyone at Kasowitz Benson Torres. That's a law firm founded by Kasowitz, which is Trump's lawyer. And she asked about if he'd had any discussions with anyone from that firm about Mueller or his investigation. And he couldn't answer it. I don't know who works there. I don't understand. And like I said, it wasn't until that Republican senator broke in and said, it's impossible to know. And then from then on, Kavanaugh's like, yeah, I don't know who works there. I can't answer your question until I know who works there.
Just feeding him the crappy answers, yeah.
So let's talk about who Kasowitz is in case we've reported on him a lot. He was in last week's What the Fuck Award story. Remember Jolo and Praz Michel from the Fugees and Brody? Yeah, Kasowitz was repping Jolo. And Kasowitz also helped Kushner get a real estate loan from Deutsche Bank and may have played a role in the firing of Preet Bharara. So Kavanaugh talked to somebody at that firm about the Mueller investigation. That's what Kamala Harris was getting at. And it was important enough for her to read it out of a committee confidential document, risking her job, but not really. But that was not released to the public, like I said. So we don't know what that conversation was about. But Spicy Files on Twitter, if you don't follow them, you should, has posted proof that a PAC to get Kavanaugh confirmed bought their website and set it up back in February of 2017. So they've been working on this for a while. And here's something else that they brought up too. All these papers that are committee confidential right now or that they haven't gotten a hold of, they'll all come out by 2019. And I think we can impeach a judge, and I hope we do, because he will more than likely be
impeachable.
Well, be confirmed.
Yeah, that's you, yeah.
And then if we can get him out, we can put maybe Merrick Garland in there like we were supposed to.
But that'd be amazing. Like Ukraine, didn't they put in their politician that they...
Yeah, but that was the president.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Totally different. Vote hacking and all that. Yeah.
And then
not the same in America, no, but you're right. Different situation specifically.
Yeah, we don't operate quite that way. But speaking of Merrick Garland, some late breaking news dropped today. That's Saturday. We record on Saturday that the Democratic Coalition filed a criminal complaint against Brett Kavanaugh for perjury in congressional testimony. The Democratic Coalition is a national super PAC based in D.C., founded by Joe Cooper and friend of the pod Scott Dworkin. According to the filing, Kavanaugh lied to Senator Leahy in 2004 and 2006 during his hearings for the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals and twice during his confirmation hearing this week. The kicker to this is that a separate judicial ethics complaint will be submitted Monday by Dworkin and Cooper to the D.C. Circuit Court for review by Judge Merrick Garland.
Oh, the sweet justice. I mean, it's like, it's not what he wanted in the beginning, but I love that he's involved now. Well, he should have just been the judge.
He's on the D.C. Circuit Court.
Oh,
that's
so
where he's been.
But he's not the Supreme Court judge. But I mean, it still counts. It's like Bernie going back to...
but he's reviewing this criminal review of judges.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. I love the sweet karma.
It's good. I appreciate it.
Do they not have any sort of conflict of interest rules?
I was thinking that, shouldn't he recuse himself from this case? And he might. But,
yeah, I'm a bitter bitch.
But, maybe not. I mean, if Kavanaugh won't recuse himself from matters coming up to the court that involve Trump, he by the way, he said he wouldn't agree to that.
Yeah. I don't think he's a bitch. Sorry, that was strictly for the alliteration.
All right, you guys, we'll be right back. Hey, Mueller Junkies. Thank you so much for supporting our show and supporting women in podcasting. I need to ask you for a quick favor that will not cost you a dime. Please head over to Apple Podcasts and give us a rating, and then subscribe. That simple act goes a long way to helping us get the word out about the Mueller investigation, and more importantly, it expands our efforts to flip Congress blue in November. And don't forget, follow us on Twitter at MuellerSheWrote to be automatically entered to win a PlayStation 4. Don't ask. Thank you so much for listening. We would not be here without you. All right, you guys ready for the Fantasy Indictment League?
Yes.
Okay, so we didn't have any indictments this week, so no points awarded. For this week, I think I'm going to put Stone back on my team and keep Donald Trump Jr., Butina for superseding indictments, Kushner, and Arando. How about you guys?
I'm going to do Trump org, Cohen, Kushner Jr., and Arando.
All right, I'm doing Trump org, Kushner, DTJ, one Rando, and Rohrabacher.
All right. Rohrabacher.
I like the way you play, Jordan.
I'm taking Intrader off, so I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
What'd you replace him with again?
Let's see. I replaced him with Stone. I put Stone back on the team.
Oh, that's right. He's like a ticking bomb.
That,
Yeah.
Like all these guys, Andrew Miller and Corsi, who are refusing to testify. I think Mueller's going to be like, "Fuck you, then. I have enough."
Exactly.
And I think he's just going to drop it. I think he's just going to send it out.
That'd be amazing.
All right, you guys ready for sabotage?
Yeah.
All right, we have 2 sabotage stories this week. The first one is that late Friday, Bloomberg reported that Manafort is weighing a plea deal to avoid his upcoming criminal trial. I think he may also be avoiding superseding indictments for collusion if he flips, because there's that likely superseding indictment that could drop, and the information that he can offer Mueller on those superseding indictments. Aside from that, Trump executives now face U.S. campaign finance probe investigations from federal prosecutors. Federal prosecutors from the Southern District of New York are pursuing a federal criminal investigation into the Trump Organization for campaign finance violations. It's really the executives that are under investigation. And since Alan Weisselberg was given immunity in exchange for his testimony, that leaves the kids. So because of all that, I am going to change my draft to include Donald Trump Jr., Ivanka, Kushner, Butina, and a plea deal with Manafort.
Okay.
You can pick this week a plea deal with Manafort, and that'll give you the Manafort level points.
I like that. Even though he's so wishy-washy, it would be nice to see it. I think I'm going to leave mine as is. I like the fact that you separated Ivanka from Trump Jr. because I think of the Trump org as all of them, like getting them all at once. But you're right. It'll probably be individually. It could be individually, too.
Yeah, and I don't think Eric... I think he's too derpy to handle stuff like that.
It's the perfect description of his face, too.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
no.
Like, I don't think he's executive 1 or executive 2 at the Trump org.
Yeah.
Good point.
Austin Powers, he's like Seth Green as the son that just really wants to be evil.
Yeah.
But he's just a big failure.
Sad but cute.
To be a failure of a failure, my God, I can't imagine what he feels at
I go
night.
back and forth from feeling bad for the Trump kids and then remembering how rich they are. And I'm like, well, some things balance out.
Oh, yeah, and her hotel was basically funded by terrorists and money laundering.
If they weren't like, evil people, then I would feel bad for them. Rich people can be sad, but they're bad.
One of them has to become a hippie or something just for the full arc of the family. Someone has to reject their ways.
Maybe they already expelled that person from the family. Oh, yeah. I forget Tiffany exists. And it's not a dig at her. I feel like she's actually a better person for it. Like the fact that I don't even associate her with them means that
I think she's a middle wife kid.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Wow.
Middle wife kid.
I'd love to talk to her. If you ever want to be on the pod, Tiffany. That would be interesting.
Yeah. That's a very different level of middle child. Not only are you the middle child, but you're the child of the middle wife.
Wow. Meta.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's just a coalition of all of his children from previous marriages that will come together and be like, Trump's not our dad, not our president. I don't know. I don't know what
not
they'd
my
say.
dad. Yeah,
I don't know. But for my fantasy indictment league, I'm going to hold off on the Manafort till next week. I think that's a very smart move, though.
Thank you.
But I do want to give... Okay, I'm going to take the Trump org off, and I'm just... Oh, no, I'm not. I'm so sorry. I'm taking Rohrabacher off, and I'll put Ivanka on. I think that's smart.
Okay. All right, sounds good.
Nice.
Inconsequential.
You guys ready for Q&A?
Yeah.
Yes.
So today for Q&A, we have a very special guest to discuss his film Active Measures. It's the writer and director. His name is Jack Bryan. Jack, welcome to Mueller, She Wrote.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate it. We caught you on Bill Maher this weekend, and we were blown away. So I really appreciate you joining us for this. So first, everyone needs to see this movie. It's like a visual demonstration of all the things we've discussed on the pod from episode 1. Everyone should see it. It's on Hulu, Amazon, and iTunes right now, so check it out. And one thing I noticed that pops up a lot in the movie that we haven't quite cracked here on Mueller, She Wrote is the connections to Don Semyon. Can you tell us about the significance of who he is and his role in the Trump-Russia investigation?
Yeah, absolutely. So Semyon Mogilevich, known as Don Semyon, the Brainy Don, he's got a lot of nicknames. he is sort of, for lack of a better term, he is the godfather or the Kaiser Soze of the Russian mafia. He is Ukrainian-born. He also has an Israeli passport. He lives in Moscow. And he was the guy who originally figured out how to launder a ton of money from Russia into America. His first scheme was big scheme that sort of made him pop up on the American sort of landscape was called YBN Magnets, where he started a fake magnet company and actually got it on the Canadian Stock Exchange. And it was just a vehicle for laundering money. The U.S. government went after him for a while. He was on the 10 most wanted list. And basically, what he does largely is two things. One is he controls the Russian-Ukrainian gas trade, which is immensely popular, profitable rather. All of the natural gas that comes into Europe, it comes through Ukraine. So it's an amazingly important port for gas. And he also, when corrupt officials, Putin and his inner circle, want to steal money from Russia, which is how they make money, is that they're not really rich off a politician's salary. They frequently will go through Mogilevich's networks to launder that money into Europe and into America. And he becomes important in the Donald Trump story because it is his network that is largely associating with Trump on the Russian mafia side. That David Bogadin, who in 1984 bought 5 condos from Trump, when a transaction that was money laundering, he was a Mogilevich connected guy. Yasov Ivankov, who lived in Trump Tower, was a Mogilevich connected guy. And our research is that it was actually after Trump's bankruptcy starting in 1990 and going to 2004, it was Mogilevich who really made the move on him and decided that this was a guy who was a good get. And Mogilevich, being a money laundering guy, knew that there would no one to ask questions about money going into the Trump organization because he was a big name and famous and people knew that money went in there. And real estate was the best way for them to do this. There's a cutout in the Patriot Act for real estate so that you can't see those transactions. And he has played very prominently on both sides. He's been connected to Putin since 1994, when Putin was deputy mayor of St. Petersburg on the rise, and Mogilevich was a mobster in Russia on the rise.
So I would assume that Weisselberg, who's the CFO of the Trump organization and the quote-unquote treasurer of the Trump Foundation, would know all of this since he kind of basically handled all the finances for the Trump org throughout that entire time that you were talking about when the money laundering started becoming prevalent.
Well, he would know certainly the associates. I mean, Mogilevich will always, in any of these transactions, be at least 4 steps behind it. So he would know Sater was connected to Mogilevich. Alex Snyder, who got Felix Sater, who was in Bayrock, the managing director of Bayrock Group, which was in Trump Tower and secured a lot of the financing for Trump properties, including the Trump Soho, some Fort Lauderdale money, things like that. He ran a pump and dunk stock scheme that was tied to Mogilevich. Alex Snyder, who got the financing for the Toronto Tower, has been tied to him through his father-in-law, Boris Bierstein. And so there's that money. And then also through the Trump Soho, one of the sponsors of the project was this guy, Alexander Mashkevich, who is been tied to Mogilevich several times. Yeah.
So purportedly, Mogilevich would have had his hands in that $95 million Russia or Florida mansion sale by Rybolovlev. Am I saying it right? We call him RoboCop because I can't understand his name. But
I think it's Rubelayev.
Yeah, there you go. And so I presume Mogilevich had his hands in that as well as, was he tied to the Rosneft sell-off as well?
I don't know. I think that the Rubelayev, I think that was, I don't know that he interacts with all the oligarchs. I think that if you're looking for Mogilevich, it's in the developments, like the actual property developments. It's going to be in those as opposed to necessarily one-off transactions. Because I think that was just Trump needed to pay off a Deutsche Bank loan, and Rubelayev was going through a divorce and trying to stash money all over the place. And so I don't know if that's necessarily connected to Mogilevich. But Manafort very much is, because when he was working in Ukraine, he was working for Dmitry Firtash, who was Mogilevich's partner in Ukraine. And so a lot of the money that got laundered through Manafort is indirectly or directly tied to Mogilevich.
So Manafort, potentially, Bloomberg reported just, I think, a couple days ago that yesterday, that Manafort might be working on a deal. I'm assuming that sort of proffer would come with it.
Yeah, or he might just not want to go before a DC jury. He might just be like, I'll take 10 years. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true, too. Or, and a lot of us were talking about how he might be, digging his heels in because he doesn't want to have to be on Putin's hit list.
Absolutely. But I think it's also the mob. I mean, if you look at what he was doing in Ukraine, he was dealing very directly with figures that were got the majority of their money from the Russian mafia. And I think that he is probably, if I were in his position, I would be more worried about that than anything else that Mueller could throw at me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. So I wanted to ask you, we have a really hard time week to week deciding where we're going to cut off the news and just start reporting it. How did you decide where you were going to end this film? Because 10 news stories drop every day on this Trump-Russia entanglement. So how was that a challenge for you?
Well, it wasn't. I mean, I think that we were kind of lucky in the sense that we started this project so early that I think a lot of the stuff that came out of the news wasn't in our heads because it wasn't there when we started. Because we started the film, working on the film like March 31st, 2017. And we didn't even get to our first interview. Our first interview happened the day after Comey was fired. And so we were starting this from a position of there is no investigation. Nobody's looking into this. Nobody cares. So I think that we weren't really, the news of the day wasn't what was driving us so much. And so we saw our job as going back and putting together all the pieces about how we got to the news of the day and giving people context for understanding the news of the day as opposed to trying to incorporate that. So we don't incorporate the Mueller investigation because we kind of see that as he's looking at the same things we're trying to look at in a weird way. And so by really not worrying about, we looked at it sort of like the election and then the things that you need to know about the pay, like how that affected in broad terms, like what is the repercussions of that in just very quick snippets and kind of give a sense of where we are. But yeah, it was a difficult call because, the original cut of the film was much, much longer. And so we were trying to figure out where to pull. And we felt the more valuable information was a backstory than the news of the day.
I'd like to see the uncut version. I'd like to see the director's cut come out.
I say that now, but it is very, very long.
Yeah, well, we didn't even start picking up this story until, I don't think we started this podcast until end of October when Gates and Manafort were indicted. So, yeah, I can see how you have more of a 30,000-foot view of all the connections that are necessary to understand, to, even begin to see why these details make a difference. So in some subsequent stories that weren't included in your movie because they're more recent, I was wanting to get your views on like the Firtash connection with Lanny Davis and Cohen. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that I think is incredibly interesting. And I wonder, because Lanny Davis also is so connected with the Clintons. I wonder if he is working with Cohen because of the Clintons or because of Firtash. Because I don't know that he's worked for the Clintons since the late 90s at all. And he has done a fair amount of work with Firtash since. So that is the biggest question in my mind regarding Lanny Davis's involvement in that is what the heck is going on there. It could just be that Firtash is a super rich dude and has a lot of legal troubles. And that could be a coincidence. I tend to think that's more likely, but I don't know. And that changes day to day, hour to hour. So I wish I had more of a sense on that. I really don't.
Yeah, that's true. Whatever you would say right now could be different by Monday when we air this. So, and then what did you think of the Helsinki summit?
I would have been shocked if it had been anything else.
Good point. Yeah, none of us were surprised.
Yeah, I mean, everyone came back. It's like, oh my God, he did the exact same thing he did at the G20. It's like, yeah, he did the same thing before, or it was GA or G20. Yeah, so I think that was. I mean, I think it was good because it was so clear that for some reason that was the thing that was clear to people. I think it's good that people are seeing it and that it's becoming more obvious. But it was weird to me that was the thing, given all of the other things that are out there. But whatever it takes.
Right. Like, how could you possibly be surprised? But I guess if you don't know or you aren't operating under the assumption that he's an asset or that he's somehow compromised by the Russians, then it probably wouldn't make sense to you. So, all right. Well, you know what? I've really appreciated you coming on today. Could you tell everybody where they can find the film?
Yeah, it's on iTunes. It's in select cities on theaters. It's on Amazon. And check it out and hope you like it and tweet at us. The film is at ActMeasuresDoc, and I'm at Jack Bryan. Do you have any questions or comments?
All right. Well, we really appreciate it. So definitely check out Active Measures. And thank you for writer and director Jack Bryan joining us today. Have a good one.
Thank you so much. I had a great time.
So that was cool to talk to him. That movie is so good.
Oh, yeah.
I can't, it's good and beefy and long, too. And so when he was like that there's a director's cut, I was like, oh my God, how much longer would it be? I want to see it. I want to see it all.
You know what really blew me away? This isn't really a spoiler because it's in the first minute, is the story of how Putin was born. How his mom was in, I guess, a pile of bodies and the father brought her back to life and then Putin was born the next.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
It was soon after that.
Well, that was in the Cornholio book. What is it? Russian Roulette. David Corn.
Oh, they mentioned that in there? Yeah, because we did that book.
Because Hillary was like, every time I ran into Putin, he made sure to tell me that story about how his dead mom's body was dragged out of a pile of bodies.
I do not remember
For some reason, it didn't stick with me until I saw this documentary.
And it's almost like a demigod story of how you came into existence.
Yeah.
And that's the way he tells it.
And Vladimir means universal ruler. I feel like he has a lot of reasons to be full of himself.
It's KGB, man.
Yeah, totally.
Once KGB, always KGB.
Totally.
You don't really get out of that organization. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You know what he looked like, too, back in the day? It was a creepy thin man from Charlie's Angels.
Ooh,
he had that
the one
vibe.
that takes the hair?
Yeah, the obsessive hair guy. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was still balding. He's always been balding.
Yeah. If Putin, shrieked like creepy thin man whenever he, wanted to, I guess, murder someone, that'd be really interesting.
He kind of looks like when Seth Green on... Austin Powers movies gets hair and goes bald.
Dude,
it kind of looks like that.
Everything goes back to a 90s comedy. I love this.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Such the golden age of movies.
Yeah, there's something about Mary. Not related to any of this, but just a really great movie.
Yeah, the topless old lady boobs scene from that.
Oh my gosh.
I can't ever get it out of my head.
The dog being on drugs, the little
Poochie
freaking
great.
out. Yeah.
My mom wouldn't let me watch the scene where she gets jizz in her hair because my mom didn't want to explain to me what jizz was.
I still didn't know what it was when someone explained it to me.
I was 11.
Yeah.
I feel like I should know where it came from.
Right. Well, we didn't have.
By that time, I had already had so much jizz in my hair. I knew. I'm totally kidding. And this has been At the Movies with Mueller, She Wrote. Join us next week as we review, I don't know.
The Mueller movie? No, that'd be too soon.
No, that's too on topic.
We should make our own little sketch, though. That'd be funny, like a Mueller movie trailer. Be really low budget, though. I can imagine.
I think there'll be a real movie, all the
Legit?
President's Men for this, and we should totally be advisors on that movie. If you're making one, let us know.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and also, we're looking for an animator. If you're an animator, I'm thinking about pitching a Mueller, She Wrote animated show.
Dude, that'd be crazy.
Right? It just dawned on me, we're trying to figure out how to make our show into a television show.
Yeah, illustrations, voiceovers.
Animation.
Yeah.
I think that's way cooler.
I love animation.
So if you draw things and have a lot of spare time and a bunch of discretionary income, you don't need a lot of money, let us know. And we'll try to work together and make it happen.
Can I bring up a comment that one of our listeners gave us?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we've been called out for this before, but our use of language that is not particularly uplifting to uplifting. That's what happens when I fart. Uplifting. It's the that we say bitch and cries like a little girl and stuff like that sometimes.
Oh man,
so
you're right.
I just figured we could have a little mini conversation of explaining ourselves, perhaps.
I do want to try to work on that because I also had a conversation with somebody about making a rape joke about Papadopoulos going to the prison. I used an Office Space quote. And she's like, you guys are above that. And I'm like, are we? We're comedians. I'm not really above it. And as a survivor, I have a lot of rape jokes in my act, and they've kind of helped me cope, right? But that, again, doesn't mean that we aren't better now and we can
reflect on it now that we're looking back. Yeah.
And we can kind of self-audit that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be real careful. I'm going to go ahead and make the pledge to be really careful not to make those kind of jokes because we're not so much a comedy pod as we are a politics pod, and I don't want to trigger anybody.
Absolutely.
And sorry about that earlier Elliot Broidy story without giving a trigger warning. That was messed up.
Yeah.
But I will. I'll make a concerted effort to not say things like cries like a little bitch or cries like a girl or blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But I think the main reason we do it as comedians is we know that what would upset Trump the most or people like that the most is to be called a girl or that they're doing something like a girl because they are so misogynistic that it would drive them nuts. But again, that doesn't mean that it's right. It also helps make that normal. And I don't want to be part of that either.
Yeah. I'd rather, dial it back too. And then we can tell, like, people usually don't complain. So it won't be like everything that could be offensive. It's just certain things that people reach out for. I think that's fair. Yeah. Because we're going to say things that I guess make us hypocrites, but people are usually okay with that.
Yeah, but let us know about it. And we'll
if
try
it
to
bothers you
adjust.
enough. Yeah.
Because I think we can be funny without it.
Totally.
I think so too. I do think that, like what you said is true. The lines of comedy sort of start blurring things a little bit because artists tend to speak and act in hyperbolic ways. So when we say cries like a little girl, obviously, we're not suggesting that all little girls are crying and are thus lesser creatures because of it. It's like the image of a little girl crying.
But then also to say
because
that
they're trying to be so masculine and like it's the stuff that they hate on. So like you said, calling them on again. I'm not defending
right.
it.
If we said cry like a little boy, they wouldn't think much of it. But because society has made a girl reference so negative by saying it, I guess that would mean that we're like fueling it. Yeah, but we didn't start it. Yeah, we're not casting
But then
the
where
first.
do you draw the line? Because I make fun of Trump's tiny penis all the time. Am I going to have a tiny penis society coming after me?
Yes.
Saying,
Yes, you will.
Now we will.
You can't demean people for their tiny penises.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I think I'm gonna still.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say little boy crying. That doesn't make a difference to me, really, the gender thing. Although I think to society it does, and that's kind of where we get in a little bit of a...
Which is why I'm willing to make changes if I feel like our listeners are coming from a really good, understandable place. But I guess sometimes they'll be on the ride for some references that, are also a little edgy. But yeah, I guess it's good that we're listening.
It is an interactive podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I do listen. I took down the tweet that had the rape joke in it, and I replaced it with some other kind of joke that wasn't about girls or rape.
Right.
But I think I just referenced him as a coffee boy or something like that.
Yeah, which could be offensive to coffee boys, right?
You're going to offend
exactly.
It's
just
some point.
But that's the point, is that people will let us know when we go really far in their opinions.
So don't be afraid to let us know. Tweet at us at Mueller She Wrote, at Jordan's Confused, at Tweet Jaleesa. Let us know what you think, and we do make changes. We're going to have that $3 level because we were just going to start at $5. I took down that tweet. I'm responsive to this stuff, and then this listener that you were talking about, Jordan, worried about the fact that we use the cry like a little girl or whatever. I want to bring that to my attention because I will just talk the way I speak until somebody lets me know.
Absolutely. Yeah, because we choose our battles. There's no reason to be like, I'm going to defend the phrase crying like a little girl. It's like, no, we can all be on the same page about that's unnecessary.
Yeah. I started a draft response back to that person, and I was like, I'm not going to sit here and try to defend those things because they're obviously so simple. They're not even worth defending in the first place.
Right. And they were a good, like a listener of the podcast. They were like a nice, person, it seemed, right? They were
absolutely.
Real chill.
Everybody's always really nice. And when we get called out on stuff, it's like, I'm not ever going to try to say I'm not problematic. I'm a comic. I'm 100% problematic a lot of the times when
I'll be the
say
title
stuff
of your
on
special.
Stage. But it's funny because I'm actually like very liberal person and everything. So it's like I'm not going to argue
you're human.
it.
Yeah,
right.
It.
Again, pick your battles, and also I think they're right. So
yeah.
Anyway,
although bitch, gender neutral, I've always used it as a gender neutral thing. I understand its roots in not being gender neutral though. But I feel like society is changing for it to be more of a I don't know. I might just
want to reclaim the word and own it. Like
slut.
I'm pro bitch. Yeah.
Until
like
it's decided, I can try to use it less though.
Yeah, I guess we're in a transitional period.
Or not.
Yeah, I feel like bitch has kind of lost its gender.
I feel like that too.
Exclusivity.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's a them they now.
Exactly.
And not a he or a she.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd never say whore. You know, because obviously that's tied 100% to women.
Absolutely.
Just like, cunt is very female.
Yeah, although if you're in Britain,
reason.
that's like very gender neutral, isn't it?
That's actually a normal.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, it's like dude.
Like,
cunt is like dude.
He's a
well,
smart
I'm glad
cunt.
to hear that. We
They even say it
made
like
it that far.
what in a good way sometimes.
Yeah. It's an interesting word. It's
Yeah.
very different over here.
Yeah. But feckless kind. Whew, no, we can't go there. Those two words together, man.
Oh,
Yeah.
dang. Yeah, poor Samantha Bee. I wish she wouldn't have apologized for that, but I understand that she had to.
Yeah, but we love women, and thanks for your comment, and totally, agree with you and your goal in sending that comment to us.
Yep.
Definitely.
We'll work on it and call us out when we miss up. Miss up? Like
Miss
just right
up.
then,
Aw.
I used miss instead of mess. And that is very offensive to me. Anyway, thank you guys so much. I've been AG.
I've been Jaleesa Johnson.
I've been Jordan Coburn.
And this is Mueller, She Wrote. Mueller, She Wrote is produced and engineered by AG with editing and logo design by Jaleesa Johnson. Our sound engineering is courtesy of Resonant Recordings. Our digital media director and subscriber managers are Jordan Coburn, Sarah Lee Steiner, and Sarah Hirschberger Valencia. Fact-checking and research by AG with support from Jaleesa Johnson and Jordan Coburn. Our web design and branding are by Joelle Reeder with Moxie Design Studios, and our website is MuellerSheWrote.com.